Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, a masterpiece that changed music history and brought new visibility to black womanhood in hip hop. Who is Lauryn Hill? Lauryn Noel Hill was born on May 26, 1975 in East Orange, New Jersey, but she grew up in South Orange. Lauryn grew up surrounded by music. Her father used to sing in local clubs and her mother played the piano. In interviews, Lauryn has said, "There was always so much music in my house. My mother played the piano, my father sang, and we were constantly surrounded by records. That environment really shaped her passion for music from a very young age." She was an excellent student, took violin and dance lessons, and even founded the school's gospel choir. She also began singing in talent shows. Sometimes she was booed, but she never gave up. When she was still in high school, Lauryn met Pras Michael, who introduced her to his cousin Wyclef Jean. Together, they formed a group called Translator Crew, which later became the Fugees, a name derived from refugees. But after the success, tensions grew inside the group, especially between Lauryn and Wyclef, and the Fugees broke up in 1997. After the breakup, Lauryn started her solo career. During that time, she met Rohan Marley, one of Bob Marley's sons, and became pregnant with her first child, Zion. Then, she disappeared from the public eye for several years to focus on her family and spirituality. Despite all of this, she remains an important cultural icon and has continued to perform occasionally.
Now we're going to speak about one of her most relevant works, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. It was released in 1998 when she was just 23, at the very beginning of her solo career. The album is filled with themes of love, heartache, self-worth, spirituality, and motherhood, and it also blends hip-hop, R&B, and reggae. The album went on to win 5 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year, and is still considered one of the most important albums of all time. How did the album come to life? Well, as I mentioned before going solo, Lauryn Hill was part of a music group but broke off because of tensions that pushed her to express her own voice and start her solo career. Hill's pregnancy with Rohan Marley was seen as controversial in the music industry. People told her it would ruin her career. Instead, it became a source of strength and inspiration for the album. Throughout the album, Hill expresses her philosophy of life and love, encouraging listeners to think differently about the world around them. Hill's focus on education also inspired the album's title, which was inspired by Carter G. Woodson's book, The Miseducation of the Negro. Like Woodson's work, Hill's album explores themes of self-knowledge, identity, and liberation from societal conditioning. Woodson argued that the US education system was designed to teach black people to see themselves as inferior and to depend on white institutions and culture. He believed that true education should empower black people to understand their history, culture, and potential, not erase it. What impact did the album have? Firstly, it made Lauryn Hill the first black woman to win a Grammy Award in hip-hop. At the 1999 Grammys, her debut album won 5 Grammys, including Album of the Year, Best R&B Album, Best New Artist, Best R&B Song, and Best Female R&B Vocal Performance. This was a groundbreaking moment because she brought hip-hop back into the mainstream and helped bring women in the genre to the forefront, where they hadn't been recognized equally before. For years, black women who spoke openly about their struggles were often silenced or labeled as angry or difficult. Stereotypes like the angry black woman have been used to undermine their voices, but Lauryn Hill wasn't afraid to be honest. And in doing so, she created a safe space for black women to see themselves represented with dignity, strength, and truth.
What makes the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill so special? The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill remains one of the most transformative albums in hip-hop history. Her sound also reflects the energy of the 1990s hip-hop, a time when artists were redefining the genre. Hill blends hip hop, soul, reggae, and gospel, genres deeply connected to the African diaspora, to reclaim black cultural heritage and turn it into a tool for liberation. Her lyrics often echo the teachings of black leaders and thinkers, promoting spiritual awakening, pride, and resistance. By fusing music with social critique, Lauryn Hill becomes a voice for her generation seeking to reconnect with its root and challenge systems of domination. Her songs function as modern political pamphlets, spreading messages of empowerment, identity, and consciousness throughout the diaspora, and providing that music can be deeply personal and powerfully political. From the first track, Last One, Hill asserts her lyrical authority with both strength and introspection, challenging betrayal and hypocrisy while setting a tone for self respect. Her message spans in Do Whoop That Thing, a number one hit that combines an irresistible groove with a moral lesson about self worth and integrity. Hill used her popularity to teach listeners how to value themselves, especially women, in a culture that often disrespected them. Into Zion, Hill transformed motherhood into an act of love and resistance, defying societal expectations that women must choose between career and family. Her vulnerability in X Factor pushed hip hop toward emotional honesty, giving voice to pain and forgiveness in a genre that rarely allowed the space for feminine vulnerability. Finally, the title track, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, encapsulates the album's core message. True education comes from within, from unlearning societal distortions and defining one's own.
The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill thus stands at the crossroads of the civil rights era and black liberation. Hill uses her art to educate listeners, reclaiming the miseducation imposed by oppressive systems. Her works embodies the idea that true freedom includes both racial and gender justice, continuing the movement's unfinished works into the late 20th century and beyond. The civil rights era promoted black pride and resistance to racial oppressions, themes that Hill carries forward towards her emphasis on self-knowledge, self-respect, and love of blackness. Songs like The Whoop and Every Ghetto, Every City celebrates black community. Hill's blending of gospel, soul, and hip hop mirrors how the civil rights movement was grounded in the black church and collective struggle. Her spiritual introspection in songs like To Zion and Forgive Them Father channels the moral activism of figures like Martin Luther King Jr., connecting faith with liberation. Hill also shows that the fight isn't over. She reflects on the systematic inequalities that persisted in the 1990s, such as poverty, violence, and media exploitation of black artists. This situates her album as a post-civil rights critique addressing how racial and cultural miseducation continues to affect black communities.
Muy bien, tía.
What does it mean to be a black woman? The late 1990, when the album was released in 1998, was a moment in which black women in the US faced a complex intersection of race, gender, class, culture, and media. The album reflects, critiques, and offers alternatives to these conditions. Several themes stand out. Marginalization and invisibility. Black women historically and in the 1990s had to contend with being under-recognized, stereotyped, and excluded from many cultural, economic, and artistic spaces. History has seen black women pushed aside, overlooked, and uncredited. Thus, being a black woman meant having to constantly assert one's value, dignity, and humanity in a society that frequently discounted them. Gender expectations, especially in culture, hip-hop. Within hip-hop and popular music, women, and in particular black women, were often expected to occupy certain roles, object, background vocalist, sexualized figure, and had fewer opportunities to express full complexity. Hill taught black women to take up spaces in the male-dominant hip-hop scene. So black women navigating that world in 1998 had to know how to survive and assert herself in a field not built for her leadership.
Black motherhood. When Hill became pregnant, the industry told her it would end her career. Women are often told that once they have children, their personal and professional dreams are over. Her song, To Zion, directly challenges that idea. In it, she sings about discovering she was pregnant. Look at your career, they said, Lauryn. Baby, use your head, but instead I choose to use my heart. In the song, Hill opens up about her worries, her joy, and the judgment she faced for her decisions. By doing so, she became a pioneer for women, especially black women, showing that it is possible to be both a mother and a successful artist. To Zion is a reminder to all women that they have the right to make a choice about their own body and life. In an interview around the album's release, Lauryn said, "When some women are pregnant, their hair and nails grow, but for me, it was my mind and ability to create. I had the desire to write in a capacity that I hadn't done in a while. I was very in touch with my feelings. Every time I got hurt, every time I was disappointed, every time I learned, I just wrote a song. Therefore, being a black woman meant confronting societal narratives that your professional or creative ambitions might be compromised if you choose family, or vice versa."
Self-worth, self-love, and relation dynamics. Black women also had to contend with cultural narratives around self-worth, how to love themselves, how to navigate relationships, and how to claim their voices. Some frame the album as a black feminist text, in which Hill embraces vulnerability, speaks truth, engages spirituality, motherhood, and love from the vantage of a black woman. So being a black woman meant grappling with internal and externalized forces, feeling the weight of collective history, gender, and racial expectations, and yet aspiring for full humanity, creative self-expression, and relation authenticity. Resistance and self-education. Finally, black women in that era increasingly resistance and self-education. Finally, black women in that era increasingly embraced the idea that they must educate themselves, unlearn the miseducation imposed by oppressive structures, and claim agency in build their own narratives. The album titled itself "The Miseducation" signals that the education one receives might be distorted, and that personal and collective re-education is required. Questions that preconceived notions that the listener has about black women, yet most importantly makes many little black and brown girls around the world realize that being a black woman is beautiful. Thus, being a black woman meant being both subject of oppression and an agent of transformation. Yeah.
How the album contributed to the cause. The album doesn't just reflect these conditions, it actively intervenes in them. Here are the key ways the album contributed. First, centering black women experiences. According to Global Citizen article, it says, "The album centered on complexity, beauty, and humanity in its narrative, something that hip hop hadn't really done before. By doing so, Hill offered black women an artistic mirror, a major mainstream album that speaks to them, for them, about them. They aren't background characters, they are full human subjects. Representation matters, and this act itself drives culture change." Second, claiming space in a male-dominated culture. Hill broke a glass ceiling. She became the first black woman to win 5 Grammys in one night, including Album of the Year. This visibility and recognition challenged the norms of who gets to succeed, whose voices are valued. Symbolically, that matters to the cause of gender and racial equality and equity. A black woman can occupy the highest pedestal and be celebrated for her own voice. We also have redefining motherhood, career, and womanhood. Through tracks like "To Zion," Hill rejects the binary that a woman must choose between motherhood and career, the Global Citizens article said. Hill affirmed her right to pursue motherhood her way. Through her lyrics, Hill answered the question, can women have both? By doing this, she expands the possible roles for black women in society, shifting the narrative from one of limitations to one of multiplicity and self-defined choice.
Speaking truth, self-love, and empowerment. In the song Lost Ones and the title track, Hill encourages women to speak their truth and to love themselves. From the article, it taught black women to speak their truth. One thing about Miss Lauryn Hill is that she doesn't hold back. This raw hip-hop track teaches women to speak their truth without shame. The Miseducation teaches her listeners the importance of self-love. Women are capable of choosing their own destiny. Such messages are foundational to feminist self empowerment, challenging intersectional oppression, reclaiming voice, agency, and modeling self respect. Framing the album as black feminist pedagogy. Some argue that the album functions like a text in black feminist thought. Instead of feeling like she has to censor who she is, she instead seems to find pleasure in everything that she is as a black woman, and there's anyone to challenge her stance. She engages themes of love, faith, black motherhood, the politics of pleasure, all from the vantage of a black womanhood, thereby contributing to a broader intellectual and cultural movement, black feminism. One quotation: this embracing of black womanhood is rare and dangerous to many. It throws ideas of censorship and the politics of respectability out the window. In this way, the album doesn't just entertain, it educates and liberates. Intersectionality and holistic agency. In the scholarship piece Black Feminist Rhetorical Praxis, cited by Search, the authors argued that the album provides a blueprint for understanding black women as holistic agents of change, not just victims or subjects of oppression. This is significant. The album becomes part of the cultural infrastructure that supports intersectional thinking, race, gender, class, culture, and the idea that black women are simultaneously many roles: artist, mother, lover, intellectual, community member.
To sum up, being a woman in Lawrence Hill's time meant navigating a world marked by racial and gender oppression, limited representation, conflicting roles, and societal invisibility, while also being expected to be strong, resilient, and supportive. The album contributed to the fight for black rights and freedom. It offered a powerful cultural intervention centering black women's voice and complexity, breaking barriers in the music industry, redefining womanhood and motherhood, offering messages of self-love and truth-telling, functioning as black feminist text and pedagogy, and illustrating the agency of black women as holistic actors. The album not only reflected the lived realities of black women, but also helped shape the narrative from the background to being central, from internalizing miseducations to educating oneself and others, from accepting imposed roles to defining one's own. And thank you very much. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is our bibliography. Thank you.